Good morning. Believe it or not, we're at week 4 of Social Work 670, Grief and Loss Across the Life Cycle. And during week 4, the primary focus is on loss in adolescence. So as always, the learning resources, objectives, readings, and media. The objectives for this week are as follows: to identify and discuss developmental considerations that impact an adolescent's grief response or responses, identify and discuss death and non-death related losses experienced during the adult years, and apply theoretical concepts to grief responses of adolescent individuals. The required readings out of the textbook are chapters 6 and 7 dealing with adolescent grief, and then 2 articles. One is on strengthening grief support for adolescents coping with a peer's death in school psychology. Talks about what schools can do in terms of supporting loss and grief. And then an interesting article on the Grief Grapevine, Facebook memorial pages, and adolescent bereavement. There are 3 videos this week. The first is Finding Common Ground, Teens Helping Teens. This is around support groups for grief and loss so that young people know that they are not the only ones that are experiencing this issue. And this deals with primarily loss of a parent. The second is around homelessness, from happy to homeless teens in trouble, and the loss of support and what they have to do to survive on the street. And then several of you in your posts have talked about not knowing what to say when there is a loss in the family. And this is a teen who is saying to people what would be helpful and what was not helpful in terms of responses to the loss in her family. So it's how to comfort a grieving teen. So those are the readings and the media for this week. In terms of activities for this week, there are 2. One is around the discussion post. So there's only one discussion post this week. You are going to read a case of Andrea. So it's the adolescent loss case of Andrea. And then you're going to discuss the following: identify primary and secondary losses experienced by everyone in this case, discuss issues related to Andrea's developmental stage, what theory would inform your approach to working with her, discuss goals, intervention, questions you might want to ask, and how would you know that your work with Andrea was done. Lastly, how might society's typical views influence and impact how this type of loss is processed by Andrea? The response is to a reply to the instructor. So you're only responding to my post. And although you're encouraged to respond to others, you only have to respond to me. And the rubric is here. The other activity for this week or assignment, there's a written assignment this week, and that written assignment is the film analysis. So if you go back to the syllabus and you look at the getting started area, you will see the rubric for the film analysis that's due week 4, and it is 25% of your grade. So the purpose of the film analysis is to allow you the opportunity to view loss in various settings and apply that knowledge. So you are to pick one of the films, either Tuesdays with Maury, Precious, or The Blind Side. And the paper is 3 to 4 pages of content, remember. This is excluding title page and excluding reference page. So you're going to do a description of the losses that the character experiences. How might you characterize the identified losses? And how does the character's developmental stage impact those losses? application of theoretical concepts, implications for social work practice. Be sure to use citations and references. A minimum of 3 sources is required: textbook and scholarly articles. So this does not include internet references. This is textbook and scholarly articles. When you're summarizing, remember to primarily use your own words, but if you use direct quotes, make sure that you put the page number so that the source can be identified. And as always, you're using APA format for any paper that you do. It also encourages you to check the originality score from VeriCite. Should appear when your paper is uploaded, because I get an originality score of your paper that will show if most of it is being direct quoted or taken from a particular source verbatim. So again, this week is on loss in adolescence. And the readings this week go over the developmental issues that adolescents face. So from the ages of 10 to 14, which is where the book is talking about adolescence, those time periods are characterized by an unpredictable mix of trying to pull away from the family while also forging their own self-identity and self-definition, and then the emerging issues related to exploring sexuality. At ages 15 to 17, young people are trying to organize and integrate their early experiences, again with separating from their parents or their guardians, and they continue to experiment with possible selves and forge their identity. From 18 to 21, they shift towards independent thinking, principled reasoning, and awareness of their own value. 5 issues that adolescents must address in their own development include trusting the predictability of events, gaining a sense of mastery and control, forging relationships marked by belonging, believing the world is fair and just, and developing a confident self-image. So these are areas that adolescents should develop or master in their development. In terms of interventions with complicated grief, the readings talk about what they say is death education, and that schools should talk about death, dying, mourning, and what to expect at memorial services, because again, a lot of young people, when they don't experience a lot of death, as people get older, they have more experience with loss and grief. But young people, for the first time, who've never experienced this, do not know what the stages will be, do not know what's normal. And so the schools have taken it upon themselves, or at least it's recommended the schools talk about this issue of death, dying, and mourning, because in Western cultures it's often not talked about that much until someone experiences it. Other interventions are group work, like you saw in the video, where teens are encouraged to talk to each other, share with each other, talk about their relationship with the person who died, so that they don't feel that they are the only ones experiencing this issue. And the readings also talk about music therapy. 2 other things for this week are that this is the midterm of the course. So the midterm evaluation is here. I encourage you to complete that midterm evaluation so I can get feedback. I can't change course content because that is set by the university, but perhaps there is some other area that can be improved, or at least I can bring your feedback to the attention of the Center for Social Work Education, And there's always a self-care activity at the end of the course shell. So this is an activity that you can engage in for your own self-care. And I encourage you each week to take a look at those activities and complete them. So if you have any questions this week, please get in touch with me either through Engage Course Shell or at norma.thomas13@gmail.com, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Have a wonderful week.